So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted to be here. This is actually at least my third time doing this, and I'm very delighted that we have now a very great panel called the Great China Biopharma Panel. And I would like to start with an introduction. So, as Thea mentioned, I'm from Invest Hong Kong. I'm stationed in Berlin, Germany, and responsible for the European market. So, if you have questions regarding Hong Kong or Greater Bay Area, just let me know. And I would like to give the round now for the introduction with Maria as the first person. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be here today on this distinguished panel with this distinguished team. So I'm Maria Dahl. I'm head of Europe for Innovent Biologics. I also have a role in global business development, where I've been leading many of our recent deals. I'm based in London in the United Kingdom. So Innovent Biologics is one of the leading Chinese biopharmaceutical companies, and now also with a global presence. It started out back in 2011 with just $5 million in venture funding from Fidelity, IPO'd in 2018, and also launched its first product in 2018. As of today, 2025, the company has 14 products on the market, 23 assets in clinical development, a manufacturing capacity of 140,000 liters, building another 90,000, and more than 7,000 employees. So I think what we can say, Innovent is an example of a generation of companies started in early 2010, 11-ish, which has been very successful, growing the pipeline and bringing products to the market. And the next part of our journey will be a globalization, and as many of the other teams here on the panel would also talk about.
Darren?
Hello, everyone. I'm Darren G. I'm Chairman and CEO of Elpiscience, which is operational based in Shanghai. I myself, I'm both in California and Shanghai. It's great to be here, and thank you for the invite. Maria's example of Innovent is really a good illustration of a saying out of China by actually early days, Deng Xiaoping. This doesn't matter is a white cat or is a black cat. As long as it kills mice, it's a good cat. And the journey for Innovent is really exemplary for the whole rise of or change of pharmaceutical industry out of China. So I'm really happy to myself witness the whole journey in past 20 years. So be happy to share what has been going on. Thank you.
Paul?
Yes, good morning. I'm Paul Hermant. I'm a partner at Bird & Bird, which you probably know is an international law firm, essentially present in Europe and in Asia. And also, and that's a feature which distinguishes us from other international law firms, highly specialized in high-tech sectors, and of course, especially in life science, where we are usually considered the number one international law firm. I've been working on Chinese transactions, both inbound and outbound, for about 15 years now, even leading me to the very ambitious decision to start learning Mandarin. And happy to contribute, but which is interesting because I'm probably the only lawyer around, and they put me on the Chinese panel, which is probably an indication that legal and regulatory hurdles do play perhaps an oversized role in Chinese in and outbound transactions.
Stephan?
Yes, hello. My name's Stephan Lensky. I'm Chief Business Officer of EpimAb Biotherapeutics. I would like to thank the organizers for having the opportunity to be on this panel. We are a clinical stage biotech based in Shanghai, founded about roughly 10 years ago. I'm with the company more or less since foundation, but I'm the only outpost. I'm not based in Shanghai myself. I used to be based in Germany. Now since about 6 years, I'm based near Boston. We are a company focusing on bispecific antibodies based on our own proprietary platforms. And we have, meanwhile, generated with this platform several assets, brought about 5 of them into the clinic, And recently we've out-licensed one of our assets in a large deal in a new co-formation with Foresight Capital. Talk about that maybe a little later. Very great to be part of this panel. Look forward to a good discussion. Thanks.
Victor?
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm Victor Ma. I'm Chinese, and I'm based in Paris since 15 years. I created a company named Sampens, which is a boutique specialized in health tech transaction between China and Europe since 2015. Actually, we have done more than $4 billion US transaction. And in 2023, I joined Fontaine Capital. Fontaine Capital, it's a VC fund based in Suzhou, in Baobei. And we have a presence in China, in Paris, in France, and also in USA. So we are specialized in biotechnology investment and medical device investment. Okay. So very happy to be here with everyone here to exchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we start the panel discussion. I think not everyone saw the great presentation by Darren before, called The Dragon Leap and what we can expect from China. But I would like to utilize the first question to Darren, that we get a kind of flavor what is going on now, China innovation. So my question, Darren, is what are the trends around licensing to or from China, especially from China? What are the Chinese companies looking for from Western farmers? Can you tell some examples, outbound from China, deal success? What disease areas are high in demand today? Yes, I would like to have your take on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. There's one word I learned, actually. I will try to search the Chinese translation for that. It's called innovation on innovation. I don't know who gave that word, but that word described really well on the recent rise of China innovation. Finally, I think someone gave a name, I liked it. In Chinese, called 创新叠加. Essentially, it's innovation on innovation. What I mean is, if you look at the licensing deals or new co-formation in the past 3-4 years, it's hard to say they are all very original innovation. Essentially, it's built on innovation itself and then make another layer. It's more like the recent molecule that's been on the website, EpimAb. This is a PD-1 and the VEGF bispecific molecule. So for any of the individual arm there, you don't see that's innovation itself, because PD-1 is already approved, 25 indications worldwide. VEGF has been around all along. Essentially, it's just Avastin. Avastin has been around for 20, close to 30 years. So two molecules coming together is bispecific. This is quite a new modality, but this one now it seems like it's beating Keytruda in overall response rate in PFS. So this is one of the example, innovation upon innovation. The other one, you see the outflow of deals. 50% in the last 2 years of ADC deals came out of China. Then you say, where is the innovation of ADC? After Roche TDM1 ADC Herceptin, there was no ADC for a long time. And Roche Genentech has been working together for a long time and to no avail to get next generation of ADC until Daiichi Sankyo had this HER2. And people suddenly realize, you can have site-directed conjugation of a payload that on the linker part, and then you can modify payload to be more stable, less loose. And suddenly, ADC technologies became the new generation with both linker and payload and conjugation of calculated site targeting. But then it is not so new on the surface. It's another innovation on innovation. And you ask for the wave to come. Next wave looks like out of many of the areas, autoimmune inflammation is going to be the next innovation piece. The advantage of China operation in this sense is people still have that strong desire of working, the sense of career growth and sense of job crisis, urgency is there. So I always compare this to the first generation of the US workers after depression. So you see, they have that hunger. They don't have the level of complacency. I'm okay, I can just do whatever I do and I'll be fat. No, it's the job crisis is quite big there. And there's no sense of entitlement. The government, everybody will take care of me if I don't work. No, you have to pay your own mortgage and everything, raise your kids, send to expensive school. So that spirit is still around in China. I don't see that in the US anymore. US have gone through 4 or 5 generations from there. But because of that spirit and with the ecosystem and everything there, I see the innovation is going to sustain for a while.
Thank you very much. Any comments on that?
Yeah, maybe I just, there was one more question that you added is what are what are pharma looking for in China, right? What do they expect from pharma? And the simple answer to that is money. Because one of the things is that financing in China right now is very, very challenging. The stock market is worldwide not the best, I would say. And in Hong Kong, it's extremely challenging also right now. So that one of the things you will want to do to finance your company is out-licensing, revenue from out-licensing. Revenue from BD is not only validation, as it is for a standard from a biotech, but it's also a part of financing. It's an essential tool for also getting additional capital.
Yeah. No, I think you're correct that there is a set of companies for which the financing and the cash is the most important. I would stress though that China is not homogeneous. There's different buckets of companies with some of the larger ones where Innovent is included. While cash is important, what matters most to us as a company who's leading in China but building a global presence is that the partners can help us generate value outside China for outbound assets. That is really the key. That we did a recent deal with Roche. We announced on January 2nd for our IBI 3009 DLL3 ADC, and what mattered there was, of course, financials were important, but really that we had a partner who was able to put together a plan for optimization of the value and reach the most of the patients. So I think it depends that different buckets of companies in China, like there are in the West and in Europe. For companies, maybe the bigger ones like Innovent, I think the capabilities of the partner and the long-term value proposition are equally important.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned partnership, and therefore I would like to address Paul. So, Paul, how should Western companies prepare themselves to meet Chinese companies? And in the discussions, what are the best practices?
Thank you. Let me perhaps come back to one of Darren's point, and especially for those who were present at his keynote speech. What was striking is indeed the combination of the blue and the green lines, and showing that there is a real inversion in how China interacts with the rest of the world. Now China is a next exporter of technology or innovation. And it allows me, because being a lawyer, I'm always asked the same boring questions. What about IP in China? Let me kill that one. Actually, once every year I'm testing ChatGPT and Copilot and so on, and ask what are the biggest impediments to interact with or to collaborate or partner with Chinese companies. And systematically, I still see The first item, IP protection coming up, which stresses me a little bit because already 10 years ago, my firm collaborated with The Economist to map IP protection in China as compared to IP protection in the US and in Europe. And already 10 years ago, the level of protection was almost similar in terms of efficiency, speed, cost, but also chances to win litigation in case of infringement and so on. Why does it still pop up? And when you dig into the answers of ChatGPT and Copilot, actually, it's turning around perception. It's become a perception which seems to be so ingrained that it still pops up at first as a first concern when interacting with Chinese companies. But when you read the full answer, you don't limit yourself to the text. It's really perception, which is not matched or largely not met by facts anymore. What you need to be aware of when you interact with Chinese companies is difficult to be very general. And when you are asked that question, it's easy to fall into traditional cultural misunderstandings and so on. And it's very much dependent with whom you speak. It's very much dependent in which area, which persons you have in front of you in the company in China you're interacting with, and so on. So I will try to avoid making too sketchy descriptions. But being a lawyer, again, what you certainly need to be aware of, and this is unfortunately an increasing trend. I don't think Leonard Sachs is in here, but when he saw me at reception yesterday, he jumped on me and he asked me the Trump question. And this is going to be a factor. We're going to live in an increasing protectionist world during the next 4 years. It creates dangers. It also creates opportunities, and I fully share Darren's view during his keynote speech that one of the opportunities will be that it's going to be, by comparison, easier for European companies to interact with Chinese companies and reversely because of that fantastic increase in protectionism, which we will see happening in the United States. But still, even China is a protectionist country. Europe is becoming a protectionist region. We have barriers to investment into a country, both in China and in the European Union, the famous FDI rules. You now have an increasing tendency, which is a bit strange for me, and I should have disclosed that I'm both a lawyer and an economist, that you also need an authorization to invest abroad nowadays. China has had it for quite a few years, but if you have read the news in January, Europe is now considering exactly the same. So if you want to do any kind of investment outside the European Union, including in China, you will need an authorization to do so. And that's not the end of it. When you accept an investment, it should not be out of subsidies money. So you have a whole set of regulation, foreign subsidies regulation, which aim at counteracting investments, and that unfortunately applies to quite a few Chinese investors. If the money they invest in whatever kind of European venture is to some extent subsidized by the state, and in China the state plays a bigger role than in most other countries, then it could be invalid or it could be barred. So quite a few impediments, which lead me to believe that there will still be transactions which are possible. And I was not surprised to hear during Darren's keynote speech how much of an emphasis he put on licensing. Licensing is probably the easiest transaction to continue negotiating and concluding in a more protectionist environment. Protectionism, I had a discussion with Stephan during the coffee break. Protectionism is a political gesture. It's to make hope that you'll become a more popular politician. But when it becomes too complex, when it creates too much headache, then politicians move away. And they have not yet tried, and my hope is that they will not try too much to start regulating licensing transactions. And that will therefore remain easier, more flexible, and to some extent, in quite a few situations, it's going to be actually a better type of transaction than investments, buying companies, and so on, because you can focus, you can tailor-make whatever you want to do together. So, in a nutshell, increased walls, but still ways out, especially if you adapt the type of transaction you're entering into to take into account the new reality. That's it.
Thank you very much. So we talked about the walls, but I also want to talk about opportunities. And I think now we have Victor at the panel from Fontaine Capital. I would like to ask Victor, is it possible for Western companies to tap into the Chinese Asian capital markets, both public and private? And are the approaches different from what we know from Europe? What is your take on that?
Yeah, in fact, just as presented by our friend, that maybe investment for Chinese investors to abroad, it's very complicated. But for European investors or US investor, if you want to do equity investment in public or privately, in China, it's quite easy. Yeah, there's no really difference between investment in China and investment in Europe. And actually, yeah, I think maybe the difficulty can be that most of European VC PE are not familiar with Chinese ecosystem in health tech because during last tendance development of Chinese biotechnology, most of the investors are locally. So this can be a large difficulty. So if industries and VCs, if you want to do investment directly, I think maybe find a local partner with experienced team, familiar with the local ecosystem can be a good choice. This for the direct investment. And there's actually a very good tendency ongoing. Maybe in my understanding that a lot of VC PE, you don't have the right to put money directly in Asia because you have the restriction of territory, for example. So in this case, there's also a lot of opportunities, just like Dahl have passed in January, like Windward. Windward has the licensed product from Chinese biotech, and later raised 200 million, in Europe with European funds, and so the company is in Europe, but the asset comes from China. So this kind of cases are ongoing, very very hot. So if you can find experienced team for clinical trial in USA, for fundraising in USA, in Europe, and commercial potential BD capacity with MNC. So this kind of opportunity are ready for you. Yeah, I think just for different investors, you have different choice.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask Maria, why is China of interest for Western biopharmas, medtech companies, and investors where you sit?
Thank you for the question. I mean, there are many reasons, but there are, of course, some which are maybe more important than others. But I want to pick up on one thing. Darren, you said a lot about sort of the spirit, right, of the Chinese. And I'm saying that as someone who I have 7,000 colleagues in Shanghai. And it strikes me every single day that this spirit is it is unique. And what I would also call it is like the glass half full sort of spirit, right? There's always the willingness to try to find a solution. But moving beyond that, which I do think is really, really key though. So thanks again for raising it. Let me get three things I want to flag particularly. Of course, one is the science. Darren mentioned innovation on innovation. And that is clearly a lot of that in China. And I would say now for a company like Innovent, it's going well beyond that. We have, as a biologics company, we have 8 different proprietary biologics platforms. They range from proprietary T-cell engagers to bispecific antibodies with dual payloads and all sorts of novel combinations of biologics. So while to establish proof of concept, we do tend to go with well-established targets along the examples you quoted. Then the next generation, and I think which you will see a lot more of in years to come, will be more novel targets once the platforms are validated. And as part of that, we also have a lot of collaborations. And when you talked about what's sort of interesting about China, I think there's two things really to flag, because there's both the outbound deals the Chinese companies do, basically where the Western companies come to us for, or to Chinese companies for technologies and platforms. And that has been most predominant here last year in particular. But there's still, not to forget, there's also quite a lot of inbound where Chinese companies do deals with Western companies for China assets. So apart from the science and just the quality of the science, the second thing I want to flag is, of course, the development and commercialization capabilities. But for the outbound deals where Western companies come to Chinese companies, of course, it's the development capabilities which are our most interest, because it means two things. Often when a deal is done, there will quite often be some early clinical data, and Chinese companies have the benefit they can generate very quickly some early proof of concept. A company like Innovent, we tend to get first in man. We do it in China and Australia. And then once we have a signal, we'll go typically to the US FDA and then file an IND and go to the next step. But it really allows to fairly quickly get to kill, no kill decisions. And that is, I think, attractive for pharma companies, that they can get, there's quite a rich source of assets which have early clinical data and some validation. And as you will know, there are a number of deals where the parties also continue to collaborate on the clinical piece. In our deal with Roche, as an example, we will be working with Roche on the first phase 1A part. So Roche will leverage our capabilities in the early clinical development. There is also, of course, for the China piece, the late clinical development capabilities, but that's more of relevance for parties coming from the West and seeking help in China. So, for example, we have deals with Eli Lilly, where they basically come to us for help with that piece and with the commercialization piece. And then the third piece, I just talked about the science. I talked about the development capabilities and commercialization. The last thing is also, I want to flag, which may seem obvious, but maybe in some ways are not, is we are attracted because Chinese companies are attracted because people know we are there. And what I mean by that is, I think there was a time where people didn't really have China on the radar screen. Chinese companies were not present at meetings like this. You would not see them. But now you will see, not only at the big clinical conferences, which is a great opportunity to showcase science, you will see so much Chinese data being presented. You go to ASCO, normal circumstances full of Chinese presentations, right? So that is also, I think, a third really key factor, that China is visible, both on in terms of presenting that data, getting it accepted in peer-reviewed publications, showing up at ASCO, ESMO, you have it, and also on the partnering front, and the evidence that some of us here on this panel, we are working for Chinese companies, but sitting here in Europe. So these are the three things I would highlight. But again, probably the most important is the point Darren said. Again, it's just the spirit, right? Which I feel is unique and very invigorating.
Darren, you have a comment on Maria's take?
I think that's very well summarized by Maria. I guess one thing to add on is on the efficiency that you mentioned. Well, sometimes it's good, sometimes bad. Actually, I have mixed feelings on this. Those people working too hard. So I'll take a sideway on this on my personal journey. I got my PhD in Sheffield, England. That's straight out of my work in medical school in China. And then after 5 years in England, I went to US to work as postdoc, and I joined Procter & Gamble Pharmaceuticals to work. And my first wake-up call there was, no wonder US seem to be a lot more efficient and more productive overall versus England. And that's not to say Europe. Now we can say things about England. They're not part of European Union anyway. So because the shops, the stores are open Saturday, Sunday, and the stores are closed 5 o'clock Saturday in England. Sunday don't open until their shopping mall coming up. I said, well, no wonder people make more money and seems to be more efficient there in the US. Working for a few years there, one time I went back to China to work, to visit family. And I suddenly realized, there's another country now. They work a lot harder than the US. I said, that's dangerous. This country is going to catch up on productivity, on output, and everything, the beating US. But there's no work-life balance in the regard, I would say, what England has, European has, and US has. And reversing back, indeed, when you talk about life, I'd rather probably have a relative work-life balance, the US style. And if I have a dream, I'll go to Europe for the work-life balance in England, in Switzerland, etc. I'd say that's the loop of from working to philosophy to life. It just underline my saying it's a mixed feeling. Is it all good to be that productive, that efficient? Like Maria said, 7,000 people out of Innovent is a great example. WuXi Biologics, CDMOs, company like ourselves, those kids work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 9 p.m., the weekend, Chinese holidays. They don't break. And yes, what's driving it? It's a good thing. One part is they're really fast. I think it was Bruce Booth out of Atlas Ventures reviewed towards the end of the year last year on productivity efficiency and saying the Chinese biotechs are really working a lot more efficient than the US or Western world. But is it all good? I don't know. But we are talking about innovation, collaboration, so I guess.
So let me ask you a question, Darren. I'm sorry for asking a question, Gary. But there's this Chinese saying, like, hao shui, hao shan, hao wu liao. Did you feel the same abroad?
好山好水好无聊.
I'd maybe translate this word: nice water, nice mountains. Living abroad, nice water, nice mountains, nice and boring.
Well, that's true, right? You live in the pasture, good inside of mountain, looking at lake. You do that every day in Switzerland. Are you bored? Versus you press a button on your iPhone, you have all type of food to be delivered to your door in 20 minutes in Shanghai and everywhere in China. Whatever you want to eat, whatever you want to get, in 20 minutes or 15 minutes is on your doorstep. So I don't know what's the work-life balance on that, right? Depend different age as well, right? So
yeah, maybe just I would like to add some comments that I passed 20 years in China and 15 years in Europe. So what said by Darren, I totally agree. But in my understanding, that the advantage of Chinese innovation actually is based on this sacrifice. What's the innovation of China? It's efficiency. It's not the efficiency of a company. It's the efficiency of the whole society. It means that entrepreneur and entrepreneur team, they work a lot. And later doctors, when they recruit patients, they work a lot. And clinical trial can be more fast. And the regulation, Chinese FDA, the guys, they work very hard too. And so what's the meaning of the drug? The drug is a patent. And the patent have 20 years. So if it goes faster, it means that the drug can be more competitive in the global market. So that's the base of Chinese innovation. Yeah, so the efficiency of the whole society. Of course, Chinese guys, we work really a lot. So how it depends how we understanding this phenomenon. Yeah, just a little comment.
If you allow me, Gregory, can I spoil things for 1 minute?
Please, go ahead, please, Paul.
It's very interesting because we speak a lot about technology, innovation, and so on, and I strongly believe that this is a big change, as Darren already mentioned. It's really a reverse change. But normally we should all have started an explanation about the reasons to consider China by speaking about the market in China. China is potentially the biggest market. It has huge population, big health needs, growing ones, more sophisticated ones. But market doesn't seem to play as big a role as the interest for innovation. And I just wanted to highlight this. I'm not sure I've got the full explanation, but when you look at the figures, and to some extent was reflected in the figures shown by Darren in the previous keynote speech, it basically, and I think the figures show that the amount of transactions world to China in 2024 collapsed by 40%. That's a dramatic shift. And that's probably because the market still is a bit more of an issue than the availability of innovation, than the availability of transacting on innovation. Probably to some extent, because of market constrictions, the reimbursement system in China plays a big role. So you need to be a little bit careful about that. But that's my minute of spoiling things.
But just one thing to add on that, indeed, the market pressure was big, pricing, reimbursement, all those. But also that as a strong incentive, together with the low time of capital market for Chinese company to go out. I highlighted in my keynote speech there. That's the very reason, and that's the reason it's going to sustain. But I think to the audience here, I want people to understand the mindset of biotech pharma companies. I can speak to every one of them. They really want to collaborate. They would do anything to find a way to collaborate. And that's really good part. Whatever diligent, efficient they work in China, their goal is to go global in various different ways: molecules, new cores, investment, market. So that's the thing. If you have interest in working with companies in China, don't withhold. If you initially the communication is not strong enough, understand that desire. They want to find any way to collaborate. This is very different from what Paul you call the protectionism, either from politicians, the government. The whole spirit of working is to go global.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Darren, for outlining like the landscape of China, and also we talked about the spirit, as Maria mentioned. We talked also about culture and partnership. Now I would like to ask Stephan about the landscape in China. So I have the general questions like, what are the trends of Chinese assets and companies going out to the world? Can you give some examples outward from China, deals and success stories?
Yes, I think there's been a lot already said by Darren about the latest deals. I think what's really impressive coming out of China the last 2-3 years are the ADC deals that have been done. Extremely high value deals. Just thinking of the Bailey deal with BMS, I think it was $300 million upfront that was given there. These are deals where compounds are clinically validated. Also the Summit deal, I guess, with it was Akeso Bio, right? That's the PD-1 VEGF. But the ADCs have been 60%, I think is the number that you mentioned, right? 60% of the worldwide deals made with ADCs and MNCs coming out of China. There was a birth of Chinese ADC companies I witnessed about 6-7 years ago. Lots of them just kind of popped like mushrooms out of the earth, and we were thinking like, where's this going? And then the moment this Daiichi Sankyo AstraZeneca deal was done, more and more interest came in getting new ADCs, and they had them already. They had them all there. You had a big flow of new companies being generated in that time, and this innovation paid off. This work, this diligence that was behind this. Where I always felt that diligence was one of the best things to describe this enormous. It's not only efficiency; it's enormous diligence in the work that I've been witnessing when I come to China and work with Chinese companies. And I say I'm working now with the same companies 10 years, seeing how it grows, how it develops. there were phases where I was just kind of astonished. Every trip, I was coming every 2 years back to China, and every trip they came up with some new results and maybe a new compound all the time. It was just so, it was not only efficient, it was the hard work that was behind it with an extreme diligence to kind of generate the best data with a very strong ambition. And this actually pays off now in deals like you see with these ADCs, with bispecifics, also ours that we have seen. We had put an enormous effort in making the best kind of the most safe T-cell engagers for us. And we had this compound, which we thought would be an opportunity in oncology originally. But then when there was a possibility to actually pivot it over to immunology, and B-cell depletion was a big trend among the investors. We suddenly had to run a bidding procedure where investors paid more than pharma for this compound. It was really an amazing process, and it was amazing to see how the Western world was recognizing the enormous diligence behind all our data that were generated. This is something that you can see a lot, and there's a lot of deals you can see. Naturally, the classical MNC deal. I guess there was also an M&A, I think with Curon, I think it was, right, 800 something million for a CD19, CD3. There was, there's this Biologix that I just mentioned, the Roche deal, the early deal with the DLL ADC that was mentioned with Innovent. But then you also have these NewCo deals, which are claimed to be a new trend. I just see them as an additional tool coming up for a lot of Chinese companies as well. But and there's one thing which we also have seen in very few cases, which is more challenging in China. But I would actually see that you might actually see that in the future also more, and that's M&A. We have seen an acquisition, I think, of J&J of a company there, which was Biologics. Yeah, Biologics, exactly. I think we're going to see more of that in the future, but it still is going to be challenging with the Chinese regulations, whether they're going to allow this. I've seen several panels where this has been seen as legally challenging. I guess, Paul, you could also add to that. But I would see that more of this is coming. Maybe there's going to be also some national consolidation coming up, because in China it might be possible, but it's still, I think the liquidity might not be good enough there yet. But I think what I've been observing is more and more of these deals in various spaces. Right now, the domination was on the ADC side, but you're going to see more of it on the bispecific side coming up. You're going to see more of it you already saw it also on the CAR T side, but the Legend deal was, I think, one of the first big deals done with a Western company there. That's quite a while ago. So I think when I was in a panel like 8-9 years ago in South China. It was a workshop where we were asked, well, what is the discount that people are paying for Chinese innovation because it's cheaper there? I said, I don't think that this is the right way of looking at it. I think you have to do the same innovation as any other Western biotech. You have to meet that same standard, and this is now normal. Meanwhile, everyone knows that. Guys like Darren, they've basically shown that the innovation in the multi-specific world, guys like our team and many other biotechs, also Innovent, they've shown that the innovation in China can meet and can beat the Western biotechs, and therefore the trend is, if you want to look for a certain opportunity in a certain area, you gotta count those Chinese companies into the potential partners.
Thank you very much. So one of my last questions I want to address to Maria, because you went IPO in Hong Kong. I like it because I belong to the Hong Kong hub. So how sophisticated are the investors in Hong Kong, China? Are they familiar with the life cycles and risks of drug and device developments? Are there a wide range of financial instruments available?
Yeah, so from Innovent perspective, I think we have had a sort of a very successful history of fundraising using a wide range of different tools. Indeed, as you said, we IPO'd in Hong Kong in 2018, raising, I think, $485 million at the time. The investors, obviously, they are local, a lot of local investors, Asian investors, clearly. They will be more familiar with a story like Innovent story than, say, investors in the US. I would flag, though, there are companies who have very successfully also listed on NASDAQ, and that I think is still an option open to including to us. But for us at the time, we chose Hong Kong because we were at the time really a China-based company. We had only just opened the US subsidiary around the same time. Europe didn't open until later. And that was an obvious first start. We have been through there. I would say there have been investors who had participated in the rounds we've done up to a Series E round, actually. There had been a mix of investors. As I mentioned earlier on, we started with 5 million from Fidelity, but there's otherwise been a mix of investors. Eli Lilly, Asian Ventures had participated, and others. So what I can say is, from Innovent experience, because we are only listed in Hong Kong, we are not dual listed like some are, or are not a NASDAQ only as others are. Those investors clearly know the Innovent story well, know Asian very well. In terms of the different tools available today, now we are a public company, we still do secondary sort of additional rounds, and then we also, which is one of the themes of this panel, of course, do generate significant revenue from partnering deals, including, as I mentioned, the Roche deal.
Thank you very much. Now we come to the famous Q&A session. I want to address the audience.
Please hold the microphone.
First of all, thank you very much for scaring us so impressively. I think it's time for us to wake up, which is good. I have just two questions. One is that you tell us this fantastic growth in deals, and yet at the same time, I always hear that you are complaining of not available capital or not enough. So how does this fit together? It doesn't really make sense or match. And the second is that you mentioned that most of the deals were centered around ADCs. So do you think this is a kind of first step in a broader expansion, or was this a test case and we need to wait until it turns out to decide whether this can go on or not?
Darren, could you make an outline?
I'm on target. Answer your second question first. No, ADC, I call it the term innovation upon innovation. You can see China is chasing the waves. ADC just happened to be budding up from the world, and China chased it up. The next one you saw, Stephan mentioned a few deals, is the T-cell engagers. EpimAb was one of the examples, forming new course, Curon, a number of T-cell engagers, especially in applications of autoimmune disease. But that also goes to what multinationals are interested. So essentially, you can say it's very snobbish or myopic psychology. They just follow wherever the industry takes. But in the big landscape, it's not so myopic. It's a very realistic approach. Even VCs, both VC in US and China, my investors as well, they have conversation with multinationals all the time. What do you need? What you really need? And that's why a lot of companies now switching and has been doing autoimmune inflammation. Of course, obesity, metabolic, that's on the horizon as well. I think the area of not being touched that deep is neuroscience. It's, I guess, too damn hard for neuroscience to but there are budding phenomena there. So yeah, that's the second question. The first question, of course, yearning for money. because too much activities. Now the investment level in China, it's not as bad. It's going back to probably the time of 2017, 2018 in that level. But certainly the peak of capital infusion in China in the past few years was 2020, 2021. That's really, if you have a company, whatever company, as long as you have a title of CEO, I kept saying everybody's chasing you. You throw a, that was a good time. In fact, for entrepreneurs, you throw a rock, you hit three people on the street, 2 are investors. So that frenzy is over, but molecules, pipelines, everything there are still there. So yearning for money is a lot stronger today. It doesn't say the market is totally flat. There's no money. There's still quite availability of money, just not sufficient to feed all those hungry cats.
Thank you very much. Further questions in the audience?
We have time for a short one, so I believe that lady was first.
Yeah, very short one. I just wanted to respond to Stephan's comment regarding 好山好水好无聊. Yeah, I was born in Hangzhou and live in Lausanne more than 20 years. So I'm lucky to have experience of 2 cities has nickname of paradise and all have the 好山好水. But I just wanted to add one comment. Actually, now the new generation of Chinese high-tech how to say scholars, they really shift from US to Europe. In particular, like I live in Lausanne, so the EPFL, they have a lot of scholars. They establish their own laboratory in life science, biotech, new energy, and also the green tech. So 好山好水 can also actually leads to the new inspiration and a new lifestyle. Like in Hangzhou, yeah, very recently, very famous also like kind of Silicon Valley in China due to this DeepSeek and unit trees. So I think this is very typical new Chinese lifestyle. Actually, they excited for the innovation at the same time. Actually, they change a little bit the lifestyle. So Chinese are delegate, but still they started to adapt also the life balance.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. A beautiful town. Anyone who wants to go to Shanghai, take the effort and go to Hangzhou. It's a beautiful town. Wonderful. Thanks.